To see what our buddy JC Shurburtt does an outstanding job with the Big Spur, the go-to South Carolina website, and his show Inside the Gamecocks. If you're not checking that out already, you got to check it out. Let's kick it over to our interview with JC. All right, we're pleased to be once again joined by JC Shurburtt, owner of the Big Spur and host of Inside the Gamecocks. You got to check it out. One of my favorite shows on YouTube. And don't forget, he's got the JC and Morgan College Football podcast with my man Mike Morgan, another favorite of the show. JC, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's no problem, Mike. It's always great catching up with you, buddy.
Yeah. So, hey, so much hype, so much anticipation for this Gamecock team heading into the season. What was your just overall thoughts on the Gamecocks in the opener? And hell, have you ever seen the Gamecocks block two punts and return for a touchdown in a single game before?
I have, but it's been 22 years. I'll tell you this story. It was the year 2000. Lou Holtz was the coach at Carolina, and they had lost every game the year before. And the 2000 season, they beat Georgia. They beat Mississippi State on an amazing pass by a backup quarterback. Took Tennessee to the wire. Got down to the game against Florida, and that wasn't one of Florida's best teams Spurrier had. The Gamecocks go to the Swamp, and had they won, they'd have won the SEC East. It was the standings were kind of like that. Carolina, I think, had 2 losses in the league. Florida had 1. And Derek Watson and Brian Scott both blocked punts for touchdowns in the first half. Gamecocks were up 21-3, and Spurrier, as he was known to do, he's like, "Well, shoot, we're just not going to punt. We're just gonna call this little thing where we go around the end." So he runs a fake punt. South Carolina had a good defense. Charlie Strong was their D coordinator that year. Carolina had a good defense. They run this fake punt, and they score right after that, and then they score again right before the half, where a ball hits a lineman the Florida lineman in his helmet. Bounces up. I think Jabbar Gaffney ran under it and caught it for a touchdown. Florida ends up winning 41-21. And they, of course, go on to Atlanta, and Lou takes his team to Outback Bowl that year. But it was, I remember it happening early in that game, but it happened late Saturday night. And, the good thing about it happening this year is it's in the opener. I think it's going to make teams sort of pay close attention and spend time on South Carolina special teams during practice. Which, of course, with only 20 hours, that cuts into your other prep time. And I was happy for the players involved. Rashad Amos returned 1 for a touchdown. He's a backup running back that had a redshirt last year. Instead of transferring, like a lot of people thought he was going to do, he stuck with it. He's going to be a really good player for Carolina. And then DQ Smith, the freshman safety, was a guy that they were going to gray shirt in recruiting until they had enough space to bring him in. He's a local kid, played high school quarterback at Spring Valley. True freshman getting playing time at safety, on the punt team, whatever. And so, just happy for the players because I know anytime you work that hard, maybe you're not playing as much on offense or defense, but you get out there and you get in that end zone, man, it's a good feeling. And I think that makes the entire team feel good. And certainly for South Carolina, it wasn't just that. They had 250-plus yard field goals. Their punter had a 79-yard punt. They faked a field goal for a first down that set up a touchdown. I mean, they were pretty active on special teams on Saturday night, and that was good to see, along with the defense. Offense, that still remains a question mark. I think they got more pieces in place this year, but it just seemed a little disjointed on Saturday night, and that's, of course, a concern heading into Fayetteville.
Yeah, and what were your thoughts on Spencer Rattler? Again, so much hype with him. I thought he was a little inconsistent. Threw the 2 interceptions. 1 hit his receiver in the hands. So, maybe that's not quite on Rattler. The other one, I think he kind of forced it. But at the same time, I mean, he was running for his life a lot of that game. He was making plays with his feet, and he was keeping the possession alive with his feet, looking downfield. So, I'm not sitting here saying he was terrible or anything. Just I think kind of inconsistent would be the word I would use. What about you?
Yeah, I think inconsistent. I think there were times where a lot of people are criticizing him for not standing in the pocket for a long time, and I get that because there were times he was supposed to. And I get that, if depending on who's doing the criticizing, it kind of depends on like my opinion of their criticism, because former quarterbacks and folks like that, I see exactly why they want him to do it. Just your average Joe yelling and saying he had guys open when he didn't. I'm not into that, but he, I thought that I think at times, Mike, when you're in a game like that where you're just not getting any blocking, and I'm talking, it wasn't just the offensive line. They didn't get good blocking on the perimeter from the receivers. The backs didn't block particularly well. The tight ends didn't block particularly well. Sometimes your quarterback has to go make plays. And so the positive of it is he went and made plays and he extended drives and got them in a position. They would have lost that game had it not been for Spencer Rattler, in my opinion. I think block punts aside, you don't get anything on offense at all. I think that's going to give Georgia State a lot more life there at the end of the game to go beat you. And so I think he's only going to get better. I think, when you look at the receivers South Carolina has this year, it's night and day better than what it was. They've got two good tight ends. They got backs. They just need to block. And, and like I said, it's not just the line. And I know Georgia State has a different type of scheme. I mean, Georgia State did the same type of thing to Tennessee when they upset them. They did the same type of thing to Auburn when they almost upset them, where they're just, and that Tennessee offensive line that year ended up being really good. They struggled at the beginning, though, with that. And so, lots of teams have struggled with the style of defense Georgia State plays. And I think that's what kind of gives you hope if you're the Gamecocks is, well, maybe this was just a tough first game where they gave you fits and all you wanted, and things will kind of smooth out and get better. That's the hope. But, this unit struggled last year up front and all that good stuff. So it's kind of you asked me how Gamecock fans feel. They're kind of a little apprehensive now because of the offensive struggles, but still pretty hopeful for this season.
Yeah, so I really wanted to ask you about that. The offensive line, South Carolina. If you look at their average distance to a first down on third down, it was 9.8 yards against Georgia State. So they really struggled in those early down situations. Didn't convert a lot of those third downs, which no offense is going to convert a lot of third downs when you're facing third and 9.8. But it sounds like it's an overall issue. Maybe you're not putting all the blame on the offensive line, but how big of a concern is that going into the Arkansas game, which we all got a lot of respect for Barry Odom and what he's capable of doing on that defensive side?
Sure, you're getting that against Arkansas. Barry Odom's going to be able to dial up just about anything he wants. I mean, South Carolina has to get better on early downs. I don't know if maybe at times that was Rattler maybe going further down the field than he should, missing open underneath guys. Certainly, the run game did not get enough of a push to set up that second and less than 5 or third and short, where the advantage in play calling goes to the offense, that kind of thing. But yeah, it was unacceptable. I mean, to be honest, in terms of the goals South Carolina has as a team this year, you can't have that. You can have that in one game, but if it's consistently like that all year, you're going to struggle, especially against a good team like the Razorbacks. I mean, out there, it's you get in third and 9.8 all the time, Michael. They're going to be calling the Hogs quite a bit on you, and it's going to get loud and going to give their defense a lot of motivation to go disrupt your money down, so to speak. So I think that's important. Early down success heading into the game on Saturday, and really for the rest of the year.
And one thing I really loved in the opener from the Gamecocks, JC, was Jaheim Bell. The way they manufactured touches for him out of the backfield. I believe even on one of the 2-point conversions, he was like a fullback right up the gut and scored. I imagine you had to love that. And it's almost like, he gets sometimes that Debo Samuel comparison. Maybe that's not fair because Debo was arguably the best skill position player in the NFL last year, but you got to love the fact that they're getting very creative to get Bell more touches this fall. And he certainly is going to be an X factor in this game.
Absolutely. And he's not as fast as Debo probably, if they raced, but he's bigger. He's 6'3", 230. He kind of reminds me also of a guy named Jalen Samuels who played for NC State back in 2017. The Wolfpack sort of used him a lot like The Gamecocks are using Jaheim. Would I've liked to have seen him do a little more in the vertical passing game? Certainly. I think he could be a weapon there, as we saw against North Carolina last year. Downfield throws, things like that. But the same thing holds true for Juice Wells at receiver. He was kind of an underneath guy. But I like the plan for Jaheim. I really think that he's a guy that could also help Michael. If you're having trouble perimeter blocking, he can slide out to receiver and you throw a little bubble and he can block for you. I mean, because he's good at that. So I like the way they used him. I like the way they used Marshawn Lloyd. I did like some of the five wide empty stuff and the tempo they attempted to run. Jalen Brooks had a really good game, and that guy, he came from Wingate 2 years ago, right? And everybody, and after the game that I was like, I don't ever want to hear about anybody coming from Wingate again, and like it's a negative. He was up and down for 2 years and missed half of last season because of a suspension, but he's back and athletically he's always belonged. And it looks like he's learned to get better and catch the football consistently. And boy, he made some outstanding catches. So playing like a man with his hair on fire, really. And so I think South Carolina has some pieces. I just in football you have to put it all together, or it's just pieces, like we all know. And so they're hopeful that they can do that this weekend. But I did one of the few positives I did take from the offense was, hey, they're going to make an effort to move Jaheim around just like we were told, and get him the ball in various ways because he's always kind of a big play waiting to happen.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Jalen Brooks because I was going to ask you that. He's now, I know it's just one game, but he's your leading receiver. Did you see that coming? And do you think he can keep that going, or was this maybe more of a one-off here?
I don't think it's a one-off, Michael. I think sometimes players develop at different rates. I think when he's had some things happen, right? So he comes in from Wingate, during a year in 2020 where South Carolina. You can ask if you ever interview Mike Bobo. You can ask him about this. They basically had one receiver, Shi Smith. That's it. And Jalen kind of was a late addition. Went through the NCAA appeals process. It was game 5 by the time he got eligible. It was LSU in Baton Rouge. And I'll never forget, he comes off the line. He's supposed to run a slant, and he gets jammed, man. And it's a pick 6, or at least a pick down to about the 1 yard line because he couldn't get off the line. Well, he kept playing and trying and made some nice, tough catches as the season went on, made some nice, tough catches at times early last year, also dropped some balls. He didn't drop anything the other night. So I think that's that confidence and that athleticism sort of matching his skill set as a player. In other words, he's never looked like, even when he couldn't get off the line, I think it just surprised him. He's never looked like athletically he didn't belong in the SEC. He just hasn't performed like an SEC level receiver. Well, I thought that Saturday night he certainly did. And caught one little pass, even, the acrobatic long passes were great, but he caught one and then ran for about 16 yards and looked like his hair was on fire. So that's what you want, is guys that bring that passion, that refusal to yield, but can also go out there and execute and keep their head about them and make tough catches and concentrate and things of that nature at that position. So I think he's here to stay. I'm looking for Josh Vann to make a comeback this week because, I think Brooks outplayed him, Wells outplayed him, some other guys have outplayed him. So, Vann was a leading receiver last year, so he really needs to come on this weekend, and so they can have even more options for Spencer Rattler to throw to.
And what were your thoughts overall on Clayton White's defense? They got the rushing total was not ideal. They got gashed for a couple big runs, but hey, Georgia State had 15 drives. 7 of them were 3 and outs. The quarterback for Georgia State finished his last 17 passes. He only completed 1 of them, so we got to credit the secondary there for getting the job done. What's your level of confidence that they can you're not going to stop Arkansas on the ground because they're so damn good on the ground, but can you limit them? What's your confidence level that South Carolina can do that?
I think they can. It's going to reverse a trend if they do, because South Carolina, I wrote an article today on the Big Spur that, they've kind of struggled on the road the last 3 years. And the common thread is they haven't played good defense on the road at all, even last year. And that's in the SEC, of course. But South Carolina has a defense last year playing Florida and Emory Jones and playing North Carolina and Sam Howell. Now, those are different guys. KJ Jefferson is a unique guy, right? He's different. But still, there's that dual threat guy where you got to limit the quarterback run game. I thought Carolina did a good job of that the other night against Georgia State. I thought most of Georgia State's damage was done early and late, and you always want that, right? So, I do think, looking at those two games schematically, I don't know if you can scheme them up exactly alike, but Longo's offense kind of similar to Bryles. Longo's at North Carolina. So, the short answer is yes, they're capable. And not just based on last year, but based on improved personnel, I think there's a better chance for that defense to go have a big time outing on the road, which you have to do to win on the road in the SEC. You have to play defense. You can win a shootout every now and then if you're playing a team like you that doesn't play defense, but it's very difficult. And the reason is they're improved at linebacker. Muhammad Kaba, a former 4-star recruit out of North Carolina, who has kind of rebounded from an injury and gotten better and better and better. He basically took the starting linebacker's job this offseason. Carolina had 2 returning starters. He took one of them. And then a kid, Debo Williams, who they also got out of the transfer portal from Delaware. As soon as Shane Beamer got to South Carolina, he's Marshawn Lloyd's friend. He showed a lot of quickness and instincts. Brad Johnson played pretty well the other night. Sherrod Green didn't even play. I think he had a little injury or something, so he'll be back out there. And Sam Pittman, in his press conference this week for Arkansas, mentioned, it would be shocking to any South Carolina person last year for somebody to say this, that, hey, they've got great linebackers. And anytime you got great linebackers, you got a chance to have a great defense. And for Sam Pittman to notice that, I think it's a testament to the improvement at that spot. And so, hey, that's a little bit, you feel a little bit better taking this group out there than maybe you would have last year, where you were speed deficient at linebacker and really kind of had to do some things in the front seven, smoke and mirrors wise. I think this year South Carolina is much better across the front 4 and in the front 7 in general.
All right, last thing for you, JC. What is the path for South Carolina to go on the road and get a win in Razorback Stadium? And what's your prediction for the game?
Well, I think for South Carolina to win, they're going to have to find some kind of way to scratch out a run game. Whether that's is Christian Beal-Smith more suited now that he's healthy to come in and do some things? Can they get Lloyd loose? Can they get McDowell on the edge? Can Bell do some things? Some kind of run game to keep the Hogs defense honest. And then I think Arkansas, they do have some injuries in the secondary, man, but and Catalan may not play, and he's elite, as we all know, but his backup's Latavius Brini, who started 12 games at Georgia last year on that defense. So how much of a drop off are they really going to have? I did notice, though, even when healthy, Cincinnati had some success throwing the ball down the field against them. So if South Carolina can pass protect and give Rattler time, or if Rattler's able to scramble and make plays downfield and the receivers play well, avoid turnovers, get some kind of running game, I think the offense can go out there and compete. And then, as far as Carolina's defense goes, you've got to play the run well. You can't let Jefferson beat you. I think South Carolina maybe, at least for the beginning of the game, almost served to go, man up coverage on some of these guys that they have, because you just don't want Jefferson and Rocket Sanders to line up and start gashing you, and then they're going to go to the perimeter and hit Knox or somebody out there, and it's the Kendall Browse offense. And so I don't know that the Gamecocks don't maybe cover one-on-one and stack the box just to keep them from running if they have to do that. If not, then if they can stop them as is, then I think South Carolina can be successful. As far as what I think, that's the key to the game for the Gamecocks. As far as how I see it, just predicting it, right now, Michael, I think, and look, things can change in the blink of an eye in college football, right? on one Saturday, your whole perception can change. So but you got to live in the now, I think, when you're predicting things. Otherwise, you just, always predict your team to win. That doesn't do anybody any good. I think these two programs are at two different spots. I think Arkansas even Pittman has a year ahead of Beamer. He's got a year where he's bit worth of building before Beamer. I think he took over a much worse situation, but he's had a year. It's his third year. Arkansas is 10-4 in their last 14 games. They've beaten Penn State, Cincinnati, Texas A&M, LSU, Mississippi State, Missouri. I mean, you name it. Like, they've consistently beaten good teams. They lost by a touchdown at Bama last year. They did get boat raced by Georgia, had an inexplicable loss to Auburn, and then lost in a shootout to Ole Miss, right? This is not a rebuilding program anymore. This is a good, solid program. They have identity on both sides of the ball. Like I said, they've beaten some good teams, but very competitive against some others. So the question becomes, is this South Carolina program ready to go out there and pull the upset? I don't think they are, just based on what I've seen so far. So I'd say Hogs win something like 34-21, and it's going to be probably, I'd say, a competitive game for a while. But I think, like Arkansas does a lot of times when they pull away late and get the ground game going, run out the clock. I kind of see it kind of playing out like that. Probably a frustrating day at the ballpark for Gamecock fans. But like I said, things can change in the blink of an eye in college football, but you got to call it like you see it based on what you know right now.
Well, just some outstanding stuff, JC. I really appreciate all this insight. Where's the best place for the audience to find you?
TheBigSpur.com is the home of South Carolina sports on 24/7 Sports. We've been 24/7 now for, this is our 12th year, 12th football season with 24/7. Also, if you want to catch Inside the Gamecocks, the show, or learn more about the JC and Morgan College Football Podcast, JC and Morgan's more for like the general college football audience. Sometimes we don't even talk about South Carolina. Go to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/TheBigSpur. And you can check out all that information right there. Would love it if you went and hit subscribe on that page too, because we have a lot of fun.
Oh, Shane, the streak is snapped. 4 homers, 3
Why
winners.
doesn't he love South Carolina? Huh?
I think this is one, Shane, where you go in and you try to be realistic, and then if your team flips the script, you're like, I knew they had it in them all along. You know what?
That's right. It's like taking the training wheels off your kid's bike, It's like, if he falls down, you're like, well, he's got to learn, If he makes it, he says, just like Daddy taught him,
But I